This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the lean builder, Hoots on the ground with no bullshito. And today's guest is somebody that I have had the privilege of knowing and learning from over the last 5 years or so. Mr. John Toups. John, man, you are a transformational leader. And I would put it this way. You love to bridge operational excellence with a deep human-centered systems thinking. How did I do? And introduce yourself, man. Who are you, Mr. John Toups?
I'm a lifelong student and had the privilege of studying under Edward W. Deming and a lot of the great minds in this country, and believe in using the knowledge and testing it. So I spent 15 to 20 years actually in front of hourly people, tapping into their imagination and ingenuity to redesign operational processes, and have been blown away in every case. I also spent 2 years flying to Blacksburg, Virginia, to the home of Dr. E. Scott Geller out of Blacksburg, Virginia. He wrote the first book on safety, it's psychological safety, in 1977, to build a system with Dr. Geller on the safety performance code. So I've married operational excellence from Deming's thinking and then some of the applied behavioral scientists from Geller's approach, along with my own learnings and my own practical applications. Right now, I'm on a mission. I'm a combination of Peter Drucker and a guy, Sid Shore, I believe. Peter Drucker said the only people who get anything done is monomaniacs on a mission. And the other guy that influenced me said real creativity is seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else is thinking. And so I've actually been able to do that, invented a few new things that changed the entire structure of some operating processes nationally. And so now I'm attempting to do it for the third time.
Man, I love it. How would you simply state your mission right now?
The mission is really about people. And whether you're in the work world or part of our society, to regain your own agency and control of your life. In that we have been subverted, like we're breathing, but we don't know what's in the air we're breathing and whether it's affecting our lungs. What the world tells us about ourselves, that we've been influenced and we don't know we've been influenced by the propaganda of the world. The guy that revealed it to me was Daniel Kahneman in his book, Fast and Slow Thinking, talking about all the hubris of the mind and the automatic principles. And one of the principles is the familiarity effect. Familiarity overcomes truth. When it's familiar to you, you believe it simply because it's familiar, but it may not be the truth. There was a 10-hour study documentary called The Century of Self that explained how the elite of the world wanted to change our thinking to be consumers of self, to be selfish instead of servants in the world, and how they succeeded with that, and how we are seen to be judged. So craft people, all right, how are they thought in society today? Are they the top-notch people? Are they the people we emulate to be? How come nobody's getting into trades? How come nobody wants to be a tradesperson? I have tradespeople in the family. My brother's a plumber. My son-in-law's an electrician. My other son-in-law is a superintendent on a construction site. We're tradespeople. Where's the respect for the tradespeople? And so because you're lesser, you're directed and controlled. We got to decide for you. It's a zero-sum game. We're going to do it to you and for you. And so I want people to realize how to get back their own agency of life and to get a system in place in lean and in construction where we steward potential of people. We bring out the capacity and release the control. So we structure and steward capacity of people to deal with the flow and to invent and to build cohesion of a team, to truly enjoy work, to come together. See, I own camps since I was 14 years old. I got 2 camps. When we go to the camp as a bunch of men, hunting ducks, catching alligators, cooking, barbecuing, swimming, whatever we do, the adventures we have, it's a lot of fun together, right? Work, come together to accomplish something. At the end of the day, instead of going home and complaining to your wife how dumb and bad it was, you should be, man, we had a great day today. God, dog.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. It should be like that.
Hello, Lean Nation. Let me ask you a question. What if the biggest breakthrough in safety and performance wasn't more rules or compliance? What if it was a mindset? What if the decisions you can make in the next 60 seconds would transform the pride, the performance, and the trust across your whole job site? That's what we've been talking about today, the bootleg system. It's more than a system. It's a signal to the workers that their insight is meaningful, that their voice has power, and they should do their work with pride. So if we said something today that struck home, give us a call, mention Adam Hoots, and we'll walk you through a free proof of concept demo to see if bootleg could be the bridge from where you are now to where you want to be tomorrow. So if you're ready, I know your workers are, give us a call and we'll transform performance through pride, one job site at a time, and let's transform this whole industry through the engagement of the workforce. Give us a call.
Man, I hear you saying, let's make the trades fun again, is what I hear you saying a little bit. I'm hoping that people can tell exactly why I love you so much, because every conversation I have with you, this is very, follows a similar path where, man, it's like, hey, 9 bits of wisdom like what we just had came out of one question. You're one of my personal lean idols, John. I've been very intentional this year about only bringing people on the podcast who I look up to. And so I'm excited for the Lean Builder Nation to get a dose of John Toups today. You started with, hey, I studied under Deming. And so I'm going to just put a statement out there that you and I talked about before. And I'd love to just hear what this means to you in a construction context. We need to systematically engage people around the process of work. What does that mean to you in the construction context?
It means that the worker he belongs with the project. It's a one hard hat concept. When you come into it, you are told the goals. We are building this a hospital to service 10 million children over his lifetime, 100,000 people a year. You're not here turning wrenches. You're building something that benefits society first. Now, the method to do that is we have goals and milestones, and then we have weekly sprints, and we have daily plans. And your mission here is to take the plan of work, and work is imagined by other people, right? The work is going to be planned by the architects, engineers, the superintendents, the flow, and we're here at the end of the funnel. And so we want to use your minds about that flow. Is it so? What's the break? And so we start with this, systematically engage them. So every day we start with not a JSA, not with a huddle. We start with a smart, safe execution plan. Today it's smart, it's specific, it's measurable. We agree, and we have the time to agree. And don't rush out of the meeting. To work crew clearly understands, because when you do that, what that does to the mind in terms of, it builds grit, it pulls up past memories of success, and it has a commitment group to achieve. Now, the mind, the filtering mechanisms called the reticular activation system. So when you set the mind up and you say, here's the plan, and you say at noon, how we doing? Well, we're not on plan. Well, your brain knows it, it sees it. So it's systematically engaging them around that flow to gauge variation. So I believe I can help you use the neurosciences and behavioral sciences to raise the awareness of the mind for variation. So let's say I see something, I feel it. Hey, this ain't right. So I become self-aware, or I look at you, Adam, and I say, Adam looks confused. He looks frustrated. So it's a consciousness of self. It's a consciousness of my coworkers. And then is the readiness of the process as I envision it, and is the readiness of the environment what we call a mise en mise. Before you cook, everything is ready, and we can just cook like on a cooking show. So now if my awareness of those four dimensions is raised, can you act into the variance? Can you speak up? So engaging in the flow of work and listening, right? So now I'm engaged in that, systematically engaged, because I'm setting you up to see, and I'm setting you up to engage. So you aware, you connect, and you transform. And so what people don't know is that when you see something, you feel it. So what did Adam mean by asking me that question? What is he? So people start saying things in their heads, right? So I have a little process of how do you act into awareness, and then how do you actually communicate with your coworker so that is a productive conversation instead of a judging, a controlling conversation. So that's what I mean. So you have to set that up and set the see in Toyota, you are expected to see variance. If you smell it, taste it, touch it, see it, hear it, pull the ending cord immediately. That's the Toyota way.
Yeah, I want to get into the Toyota production system and the Toyota way here in a minute, but you make me think of the old Mason parable, right? There's a traveler who came across three masons working on a construction site, and he asked each one of them the same question: "What are you doing?" And the first one responded with, "Oh, I'm laying bricks." And the second one responded to the travelers, "Well, I'm building a wall." And the third one responded to the travelers, "I'm building a cathedral." Right. And so understanding the purpose of what your task is, the first person saw his job as just a task, just a job, just getting things done, building this wall. It didn't matter what it was. The next worker or mason saw his job as more of like I'm building a wall. It's a step to a bigger plan. So I'm a little more connected, but not completely connected. And then the third mason building the cathedral was building a pathway to the Lord. So he's looking at his job as something meaningful and lasting, something that's going to impact people for generations to come, even after he's gone. And I think it just shows it's a good parable to understand how leaders can use the power of why to connect workers to work and really help them have a deeper sense of purpose or engagement or innovation in what they're doing. I love it. Love what you're saying. I want to know more about your personal why. Like, what's driving you to this human-centered reframe of lean? Was there a moment or a project for you that kind of set this off? Where's all this coming from, John?
I don't know how to answer that other than I guess it hit me how controlling and disrespecting business is to craft people, and even to myself. When my dad died, I was 12 years old. Mom had four kids, and we lived out of town with no family. And so I had to work, and my mom never got remarried. She died at 95, and she never got remarried. So imagine raising four kids by yourself out of town with no family, right? So I worked. I was a janitor, bricklayer, a carpenter. At 14 years old, I got a little boat, and I would trap nutria at night. At 14 years old, my mom would let me go in a little putt down the canal, and I trapped nutria. I made the equivalent of $750 a week at 14 years old. I had shotguns, motorcycles, but through all the work that I continued to do my life, I either got treated as college boy, oh smart college boy out here with the craft people, and so there's a different setting between management and workers. that I observed. And because I worked with different races in menial jobs, I got to feel that. And then I also went to a Catholic school, which more had richer people paying that, and I had a relative that actually paid for me and my siblings to go to a Catholic school. But believe this or not, when I went to a Catholic school back in the '60s, the tuition was $3 a month. Can you imagine that? A Catholic school? I have a receipt
I'll
of that.
take two.
So, and then when I'm doing re-engineering work, when I don't know, I was selling stuff to Martin Marietta and Space Shuttle. And back in 1979, CBS did a document, If Japan Can, Why Can't We? Ralph Tartridge had a mission success, went to Japan to study, and he came back with a bunch of books, and he told me, I'm studying this Deming stuff. And I said, well, I'd like to learn that. So he put a bunch of books in my hand, and I started, and then they let me facilitate some quality circles, and I saw the imagination of people come alive and contribute. It was just amazing. So it made me realize there's an untapped potential in people that we're systematically not engaging that mindset. We are controlling. And in safety, it's all compliance and regulations and audits and catch them. And management wants to see trends and tell them what they're going to do out of the trend, as opposed to, idiot, the two people are looking at each other and I see a variance. It's not a catch them and blame them and punish them. I see something that could hurt you. I'm going to have a conversation to help you. But guess what I'm going to find out? It ain't you, it's the system. The environment sets your mind up to be apathetic. So you have to understand human beings are not a mathematical equation from the engineers. It don't go from A to B.
Yeah, a mechanical system.
So you and I talked. You've been listening to the Capital Stanford.
Yeah, indirect work.
So you're understanding that the world is in fractional silos, and you try to manage this silo like safety and like quality and like lean. It's all a silo, but it's not an ecocentric system. So if you look at the worker and he's frustrated today, why are you frustrated, Adam? Well, I'm looking at this blueprint and it's not enough detail. Well, where'd that come from? Because the management said we got a budget for engineering, it only can go this far. So now it doesn't take it deep enough. So now it gets to the tradespeople that got to read whose mind to figure it out. So is the problem the worker, we got to catch him and blame him, or is it the ecosystem of the management allocating the budget for engineering? Okay, so it's all connected and it's all interactive, but yet we silo it and control it in silos. Yeah. And the person who knows, who is not listened to, is that worker on the ground. And so that's what Deming meant when he said systematically engage people around the processes of work and listen and experiment. And so I remember one time I was working on a workover rig and we're doing some imagineering. And a guy says, I know how we don't have to take those rusty bolts off those wellheads. And one of the guys said, let's get the drug test out here. What do you think? They hire us to undo them and pull the wellhead. Who else is going to do it? He says, dude, they got a company that's under contract with a jack-up fleet. It doesn't cost any more money. They just come up here ahead of time and they use a nut buster and they hot tap one at a time. And then when we get here, we got nice clean bolts and we can just spin them right off. Save 18 hours of rig time.
On me up.
8 hours of rig time. We're saving $250,000. And so they had 3 rigs under 3-year contracts, wasting. And so we saved tens of millions with that idea. Tens of millions.
I love it, but it's not easy to engage folks. I hear you talking about a frustration that I've had in the lean construction world for a while, and we talked a little bit about this. You mentioned Toyota. I hear you saying the lean construction world, we've adopted a lot of Toyota's tools, but not necessarily the mindset or the discipline to engage the worker. Can you break that down a little bit deeper for me? Where do you see that gap?
That's the gap.
No.
The mindset is very simple. Everybody's focused on AI and tools and flow and Kanban boards and all of that kind of stuff. Just go look on anywhere. We build people first. So how do you engage and build people? Where is that? And then how do you deploy it? So the gap is that what is the potential of people to be engaged with the project? So to me, tell them what they're there to do and how valuable it is. And that's your career, is being a builder, improving the world. Dude, you here making something that no one else can do. You're the last bastion of men, people coming together and making something out of nothing that's going to go on in the future that's for real. You one of the real people who built this world. That's who you are. Now, the way we're going to do this is we got so much time to do it, and we want you to help us improve that. So that and so you treat them with respect when they come on board, and there's a way to challenge the current givens. But how would you? So I just told you I would set up a smart, safe execute. I would give them the goals, the milestones. I would give them the freedom to meet and make sure they're in agreement on execution, and then to be able to speak into the variance when we see a differential in either expected daily plan or human performance. And what we don't understand is that because we don't do that in this world of people, every time they feel disrespected and every time they're let go or they see or experience and they don't speak up because the mindset is we're inferior, we're craftspeople, and they're going to tell stuff to us and for us, and we just got to take it. It's like the coward gets 1,000 cuts. He gets another cut to his self-esteem. And then so he doesn't speak up. You said it's never been hard for me to get people to speak up. Adam, when you get in a room of peers, everybody can complain, but people can't change the system. And I said this prior to us getting on this call. There's only one person that needs to change, not the superintendent, not the workers. It's the CEO that's going to say, we are going to focus on the people. We are going to, now you see, I think CEOs understand they got a problem with the new generation because it's real in front of them. We ain't hitting production goals. We ain't hitting quality goals, and 18% increase in deaths, suicides. They know it. And they spend a lot of money in a very dumb way. I've been asked to quote to be involved in a $1.6 billion project, and it's going to have 2,600 people. And they're going to put 120 safety people on the ground at $100,000 a year. They're going to spend $36 million in non-productive safety people to watch and catch people and make sure the stupid workers don't kill themselves, right?
Police.
And then they're going to have safety meetings and lost productivity with safety meetings. But they don't know how to engage the capacity of the worker.
Oh, tell me this. There are a few tools, right, in the Toyota production system that are designed to support a people first culture. Things like and Encore, I heard you mention earlier, Ponce. Can you break some of those down and help us understand how those put people first?
Well, first of all, it's a trust factor. So if people are first, you trusting them, right? They're not to be controlled. The system is then saying, you are telling us. And when I used to go out on the job sites, I would take the pyramid and then say the CEO of the company, the vice president core of people, the supervisors, the engineering, the operation, and the last row is us, the little hourly people. And all these people are coming down here and telling us and directing us and making sure we're safe and everything's in alignment and they're doing to and for us because they're so much smarter than us. Look, they're higher up the org chart, right? They higher than us. So I would flip it and I'd say, now, and they would look at that in amazement and say, what are you doing? I said, they should be looking up and kissing your butt and supporting you to make sure you got everything you need to get it done. because everything down here ain't getting it done. You the dude that's putting it together and making sure it's done with quality, and all they doing is all of this stuff that ain't physical. And so they need to be looking up to you. So, and you feed them, you're telling them, you're directing them in terms of meeting your needs because they're not doing it and there are gaps in that. So the ending chord is in that mapped flow. It's the trust in them to be able to see variances in multiple dimensions in their own variance. I feel tense. I feel like I can't do this right now. I need to pause. Or I see a coworker that seems to be a little confused with the new journeyman and the inexperience of the Gen Zs. Are you just going to sit back and are you going to come forward and then embrace that? So the ending chord is a trust factor of acting into variance and into discovery of variance. And then an expectation. And then what happens? Do you know what happens when they pull the ending chord?
Everything stops and they swarm the problem, right?
That's right. How often would that happen on a job site?
You stopped? Whoa, we don't stop. No, no.
Oh no. Oh yeah. No, just make it work. Just
Figure it
make it
out.
work. Right?
Yeah.
That's right. So there's no sense of working to a standard. Right. Whenever we would go out on a problem and said, okay, where's the SOP? Where's the procedure and what's the discipline of execution? Well, no, there's no standard procedure. And so I'll tell you what really gets me and hurts me about this industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the lack of understanding around serious injuries and fatalities. We know the death rate's going up, and I just had this conversation with a vice president of a $350 million company. And at the end of it, he said, on Monday, I'm calling the president of the company, and we got to get you engaged with it. Because here's how it went. Y'all have a focus on SIFs. So, and the Construction Industry Research Alliance out of Boulder is seriously focusing on that. And so they identified 12 of them, high energy stuff that kill you. So there is no standard operating procedure because it needs to be owned by different crafts and different companies. But let's say we want to teach that. Okay. So we do this for one of the largest refineries in the world. Okay. There are 12 processes. They have 30 to 40 sequential steps in that process of excellence, flawless execution. Well, it is humanly impossible to remember 36 consecutive steps. In the heat of a life-saving event, a life-threatening process, people need to know what the planning ahead needed to be, what the resources of execution are to be in advancedly prepared. They need to know the standard operating procedure. They need to know direct controls. If I wear my fall protection, I don't get killed. And if I don't have a direct control, an indirect control, like driving pilings, be out of the radius of the fall. So everybody needs to know that. And then if anybody's not clear about how to do their role in that execution, pull the ending cord and make sure we're supported in execution. And then how do we close it out? And how do we then do an after action review to make sure that we are clear on all the processes? 12 of them. Now, Adam, you've been in construction. Could you sit down with a piece of paper and take fall protection or take confined space? You name me a safety director who can sit down there and say, here's the time that we should have planned. Here's the resources that we need and get them right. Here's the standard operating procedure that everyone should know. Here's the indirect and direct control. And here's the closeout procedure. Who can write that down?
It's impossible due to the variation at each project site and each person doing the work. I don't think anybody could ever really truly do that and not experience any variation or miss.
Again, it goes back to variation. That's what lean is about. Reduce variation and increase expectations because we're controlling variation.
Because we love the people doing the work that much. Yes.
So why wouldn't your company put people in a room and say, okay, we have confined space on our projects as our company with our resources. How do we do it? When should we plan it? What are all the tools and preparation we needed? Then how do we generally do it? And then we can deviate, but here's the standard that we should apply and do it. And actually, you can use an NGT meeting in 1 hour. You can build it. It may not be perfect, but it'd be better than what you got now. Then why
what's an NGT meeting? Break it down for.
It's a nominal group technique meeting. I became aware of it when President Kennedy used it to put different levels of people, executive presidents, hourly people, regular citizens in a room. Now, when you do that, there's an intimidation factor and a belief that we're not equal, so people don't speak up. So how do you get equal weight conversation from everybody, regardless of status? So how do you get equal conversational input from everyone, regardless of status and self-esteem at the time? And we can do that, and it's powerful.
How do we do that,
It's
John?
so
How do we do that?
you use a nominal group technique. So I'll give you
Full circle moment.
So this is how. So here's how it works. It's very simple. It takes an hour though. Group of about 7 people. You frame the question. So I'll give you an example how powerful it is. This is in the Annika prison. There are lots of different gangs in the prison fighting each other and disengaged. And the environment of the prison's really confrontational with the guards and each other. And they wanted to figure out how to, even though you're in prison, we got to make it better. So they put up a statement. How do we improve the functionality and living conditions in the prison? How do we do that? So everybody at the table from the different gangs and even the prison guards, okay, you write down your ideas on what you think. Adam, you write yours for 7 minutes. I write mine, and then I'll say, Adam, give me one. We write it up. John, give me one. Nobody's talking. We just put it. And then if I say, I think Adam should be expanded, okay, expand it. And so we keep going around, and we got this whole big old list. So now you got it on the wall, and we read them for clarity only. So everybody clearly what that means. Now you get 10 points, you get 8 points. Now you've got the collective group thinks this is number one. And so they did that. And the group agreed, and we will support number one because we saw how it was done. And guess what? They did nothing. But they had pulled them together in a unified, what they thought was a unified way to begin. And guess what happened? They started a riot because they didn't listen to them. So and I use it to build processes of work processes. And so what is the best way to do it? But then what I do is different. So once I get all the things we do for planning and all the tools and the SOP, we then arrange them from a training perspective on a process. We would take it and arrange it easiest first, and then support a mentor so that the guy's self-esteem. And I would do this on the 80-20 for just craftspeople. What's the 20% you do 80% of the time? Define it, organize it easiest first, assign a mentor. Now a guy knows that who he can ask dumb questions to, get them answered, but he's doing the key functions of work to be productive in his team immediately. The 80-20 rule, 20% is done 80% of the time. Learn those first, starting the easiest first. So why wouldn't a company build it, put it in their pocket for $5, put a QR code that lets you download it into your phone? So if you're going to execute something, let's go through this, make sure we're all clear. And if we're not, why wouldn't a company do that and provide it to its people? You only have to do it once, and then you leverage it either through the document or the download QR code into a phone. So you're setting people up to overcome the cognitive limitations of their mind in the flow of work to add competence. And then if you see the insecurity of a coworker, the way that you approach them from my methodology and what I call the care, you act into variance with care about the human being. You would simply say, Adam, walk me through this. I'm not real competent on this right now. Walk me through the steps of this. And I didn't say, you stupid, you don't know what you're doing. I don't think you're incompetent. Just walk me through the steps real quick. Okay, me and my wife, I call it a CPR. It's a collaborative planning review. And because she and I, if I ask her to help me now that I'm 75 and I got a busted arm, if she's not clear, it doesn't work out too well. So if we go through this little collaborative plan review, it lets me mentor or she mentor, collaborative, supportive way of cohesiveness the way it should be, right? We just aligned and can help each other. So why wouldn't we take and set people up success around life-saving rules if we cared about people? If we put people first, let's make sure that we set them up for operational flawlessness around events that can kill them and make sure that we had the best minds, not in the process, but being able to execute the process, right? There's a difference in knowing and doing.
Yeah. There's a huge difference in knowing and doing it. And you're starting to kind of unpack this idea of controlling behavior to kind of awakening people's capacity, the capacity of the human, the individual. So you've talked to me a lot about the Pygmalion effect. And I would like you to explain that to the Lean Builder Nation, exactly what that is, and then help us understand, like, how do these traditional systems create this Pygmalion effect, and why is it dangerous for innovations on projects?
Well, so the Pygmalion effect really is that my beliefs are projected onto you. It's a controlling mechanism based on belief. So if I don't believe my son is coordinated enough to really play baseball, that he would be embarrassed, I don't let him play. So I made that and I project that and I limit him because of
Mm.
that. In the story of Pygmalion, the guy believed that the statue could become a woman and it became a woman because the beliefs were projected. But let's see how this gets formed. So if you study David Shine's work on culture, he said there's not one culture, there are four cultures. The CEO culture, the way that they got educated in their mindset about asset allocation and return on investments, and they see the world in terms of in that light. And then you have an engineers that come up with a mindset of beliefs, right? About A to B, a direct linear correlation of things. And then you got operations people. So beliefs are the way you believe things happen, and they're grouped. So now this idea from the framework of development of leaders and engineers and operations and workers, you project your belief. It's called idiosyncratic rater effect. You project that into your behaviors, into your judgment. So I'm judging you as low potential, high potential, and because I judge you as low potential, you don't get to go to these schools. You don't get to go to this. You're gonna have to do this. And so people make judgments which are idiosyncratic. It comes from Buckingham's work. And so in the Four Wisdom, it says don't listen to other people because they're just projecting themselves on you. And it's not you. So we have to understand we're doing that. And Buckingham understood that so much, so he created what's called the Q12. You ask the worker, hey, boss, hey, worker, do you have clear expectations? Are you given the tools you need? Are you giving feedback? Are you open? So you ask the worker, and if that's not happening, the boss ain't leading you. He's pushing you, right? So if I tried to judge the boss, I might think from my outside view that he's doing great. But when you ask the workers, he's not. So this projection is is controlling based on my beliefs rather than the release of your potential. So when you structured stewardship of potential, it's you realizing that these people have capacity and you're going to let it come to life and use it. Now, when David Spears wrote a book, I studied his work, I've met him twice. He wrote a book called The Velocity Edge, and he said, you win with volume and velocity of innovation. Where the heck is it going to come from? All the engineers in the office? It needs to come from the 2 million ideas from the workers at Toyota with a 96% adoption rate. Toyota has 330,000 workers. They make more cars than anybody else. Toyota has 790,000 workers and makes less cars. Toyota makes 3 times the profit with 330,000 workers. So it's the system of people's constant Kaizen, little incremental increases. We don't structure that in lean. We don't structure that in business. The workers, it's a zero-sum game. The workers are there to perform tasks, to do things, and they're always the problem. I won't mention the names, but the elite in safety were at a conference, and one of the elite were holding a discussion with the other elite leaders. And he had sold his company, and it was a consultant for CEOs only. He was such an elite guy. Talk to the CEO. And every time there was an incident, he said 100% of the time, the CEOs would say, "What are those dumb buggers doing? How could they have done that?" It was 100% blame of the worker and the worker's neglect. It's never the system that sets up failure. And what did Deming said? 95% of the time it's the system, not the worker. So there's a disconnect in the beliefs of leaders and the reality of execution. And so I told you before we came on here, the toughest project in construction is reconstructing the belief systems of the CEOs and the owners and the general contractors that the world has shifted under their feet. The way that they controlled and made money and did things after the pandemic, the Gen Zs and the millennials, they want to be engaged, they want to be respected, and they will work, but they don't want to work for you, and they don't want to work when they're a tool. So we need to rethink, if we're going to win in this world, how do we really do what needs to be done? Is touch the hearts and minds of people and create a system where they feel good and can contribute rather than sit there wait to be told what to do.
Yeah, and I keep hearing you use the phrase the stewardship, the potential of the worker. And so I know that you are working on kind of this legacy project, and I want to dive in there really fast. You call it Boot Link. I call it Hoots Link. It really makes me think of the reasons why I've been successful in construction for 25 years. I feel like you're almost creating a tool that forces the engagement of the worker. It forces CEOs to be witness to what's actually happening, boots on the ground. So, can you just kind of set the stage for us a little bit there? What are you working on? What is this kind of legacy project, I'll call it?
Well, it's a paradigm shift in thinking from control to stewardship of trust. Again, so if we believe the workers have a capacity to contribute, how do we release that capacity? So it's not through control, it's through release. So you steward an environment where they can speak up and their voices get used, and that you reawaken that capacity. So I have 12 stewardship principles. Okay, so the way systems work, it's beliefs, okay, have principles, then you have systems. Systems have processes, processes have methods, methods have tools. So we have that. So it's a reevaluation of, can you move here, Mr. CEO, to a stewardship concept of people? And then I wrote an article, The 30 Minutes That Changes Everything. So if in Albert Bandura's work on social cognitive theory, you learn by experience, by doing it yourself, or vicarious learning, or by verbal persuasion. So imagine this: you do this system of release, even a pilot, where the workers are set up the reticular activation system, and in that meeting, we ask what you learn, and we use something called appreciative inquiry concepts. So we set it up to constantly being aware, and give them the freedom to act and the tools to act, and then we see what happens. So in the boot link, my software eTracker is the linkage. So once you put it in my software, either through paper or through a direct phone or mobile, it goes immediately to management. So weekly, management looks at this, and they're looking at something and it says, wow, it's a mandatory process. Look at what Adam saw. Look at what he did. Look at the impact. Look at what John did. Look at what Fred did. So they start seeing and having a conversation about, wow, they're not so dumb. They had lots of ideas. Wow. So it reinforces the value that we should structure, leverage. And so we can say, how many ideas were turned in? How many were acted on? What is the monetary impact immediately and in the project? And can we leverage it? So now management wants to see dollars so that we did this. So what's the dollar impact? But more than that, we can trust them. So in that 30-minute review weekly of the input, management changes their own mind. And so we creating environment that to steward the people to do it, but management to see it, and then management to leverage it and to know what resources they need to know to give the people, not looking at trending of their behavior, but looking at the problem defined. Here's what we did, here's what we need, and setting up the management to respond in that reverse pyramid concept. They're letting us know what they need. And the beauty of my eTracker software is I can communicate to external vendors, internal contractors, to the superintendent, to the owner overnight. And it's automatic. It pops up in an email. It pops up in an email to a dashboard. Boom. So it creates a cadence of responding to the workers. And the workers have a cadence, right? They show up every day. So we create a cadence for the workers and we expect learning. We ask, what did you know? And then at the end of the day, imagine this. There's something called about changing the fix-it mentality. Okay, appreciative inquiry concept. Everybody knows everything's broken. We got problems every day. It's a frustrating day, blah, 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 blah. What if we flipped it and we looked for what went well? What at the end of the day, we said, Adam, what were you surprised about? What went really well today? And how can we leverage that? So part of the concept is to look for good and to leverage good. And let me tell you how powerful that is. Again, I'm reworking a project and we're timing it. We have a start time, an end time, or we have multiple crews executing, or we discipline to get the same outcome. Well, it wasn't a lot of money. It was a 7-hour process and somebody came up with 5 hours. Well, when you have a pretty tight studied process and you got a 2-hour variance, what was the difference? Well, we used the impact wrenches from the mechanics. So, well, wait, you don't have impact wrenches? No, this was on a rig project. So they had to put a wrench, put a hammer, and take the bolts off. So I said, well, what did that cost? Well, 2 hours of rig time is $15,000 an hour. That cost $30,000. Wow, how much does an impact wrench cost? $750. Well, how often we take these bolts off? Every 2 weeks. Well, we got 3 rigs doing this every 2
It's an
weeks.
easy calculation. Yeah.
We're talking 60,000 a month times 3 times 12 times 3. Let's get a few of these impact wrenches, dude.
Yeah. Makes complete sense.
All by catching what went well and how do we repeat. I'll give you another example. Construction site. We're putting up windows, right? And so the crews simply ask, how can we make all this stuff better? Guy said, well, we want a site where we had rigging on the windows when they got here. We just lifted them up and we didn't have to spend our time rigging. Okay, let's see if we can do that. So they did that. So it went from 8 windows to 10. So then somebody says, hey, if we would make a little jig and then we could come in here and it would help us place them quicker. So they did that. So then they went to 12. So they started with 8 windows. Now they had 12, which is a 50% increase with the same people. All it took was a little different thinking. And guess where it came from?
The people doing the work.
Whoa. They were imagining listening to them. Systematically engaging people around the processes of work, stewarding their capacity to invent, improve, and align around self, co-workers, the process, and the environment. See variance, act into variance with care, and leverage the variance.
Yeah.
Leverage the learning.
So
Does that sound complicated to you?
It sounds like common sense. It sounds like the reason I've been successful in my career. Honestly, it sounds like you're creating a software that helps to operationalize things. And I can tell it's anchored in this kind of Deming philosophy, right? It sounds like it's built on neuroscience and awareness, all the studies that you've done. It sounds like you're flipping the role of management, right? You're helping them change their own mind. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a no brainer slam dunk. And so I have one question. In fact, I learned this question last week at ASC from Dominic Desmaris up in Calgary. If you haven't met him, you need to. Awesome, wonderful human being. What problems is the software solving?
Okay, well, let me back up.
Okay.
The software is just a link of transferring information.
Ah,
That's all it is. It's just a conduit of the
mm,
system. The system is based on belief that we can trust workers to systematically engage and improve processes. So the system is really a belief. And then it's how do you operationalize? That's what Lean has not done. It has not operationalized a belief into application. So it's setting up the mind, the trust, and the system to set the mind up to see variances, react into variances, and the software captures what were the variances about, what did the team do, what do they need support to improve, and how could you leverage that learning. So the software just shares that experience to be multiplied, the volume and velocity. So it's a belief in trusting and people, then setting the mind up to see, literally with triggers that make the mind aware. Then what do? You say nothing. Oh, well, so sad. They didn't plan. There's nothing I can do. Or to bring agency back to workers to say, no, you own it. You own that differential. I believe it works like this. You see it, you feel it. All right. I want you to name it and own it. Now I want you to share what you just experienced. But when you share into your coworker and your team, you do that using a care model, which is about being clear about your own self. It's about aware of the story in your head. It's about relating with empathy to the person you're going to relate this to. And then you're going to engage with discovery. You're not going to engage with blame. So you're going to engage with these four components. Are you calm, clear, and committed to what you're about ready to do for what the outcome you want? Or you blaming Adam thinking he's doing something stupid, he don't care? What emotional state is Adam in? I'm fixing to talk to him or my team. You got to do this with empathy. And then I want to, Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand. So because I may not be right, I may be idiosyncratic, I may misjudge you based on my experiences, I'm going to engage with inquiry. And then we're going to discover together. And I'm going to give you some tools of discovery in that conversation. I'm going to help you explore the way you think to transform that teachable moment where we learn and collaborate together into a transformational opportunity for the system and us as a cohesive team. So that's not a software. That is a process of engagement and trusting people and then capturing that and leveraging it.
yeah. That was one of my biggest takeaways from indirect work and Miss Carol Sanford's work there, where she encourages you to think about the way you think, right? Think about the way that you're reading this book. How are you relating to experiences and really challenging the way you're thinking based on preconceived notions? And that was a real eye opener. So I hear you saying the problem that the software is solving is it's not necessarily about the software whatsoever. It's about the mindset, the paradigm, connecting the manager to the worker to really ultimately drive trust in that relationship to improve the project that we're getting done.
Absolutely. But here's the problem. And I have been able to solve that in several instances. You have an owner that's got a big pot of money to spend, okay, and he realizes he has a problem. But how does he go through a general contractor to a contractor to a worker when all he got is money? Because his money buys a consultant, an engineering firm, an architectural firm, it buys a general contractor, and then it gets subcontractors, and then it gets
And all of a
workers.
sudden, he is 50 layers removed from the people who are creating the value that he or she is trying to generate.
Absolutely. So what I was able to do with Suncor and Exxon when they believed in us as a third party. Now they used to doing that. You hire third parties to come in and erect the steel. You hire third parties to run the electrical, right? Everybody's hired, but is there somebody that's hired as the people connection coordinator so that you could say, we're going to come in and we're going to bring that capacity to capture that. First of all, you got to believe when you hire companies, we want hire companies that believe in a stewardship philosophy, that they will steward and engage workers and use their capacity as part of the productivity delivery. Matter of fact, on this $1.6 billion project, the owner said the productivity rate is so terrible, it's 40% time on tools at best. And then we got these 36 million we spend it for safety people. How are you going to show me, Mr. General Contractor, that you can bring a different level of productivity? And the person who I had worked with in the past called me and said, man, we have advanced packaging, we have superintendents, we got what everybody else got. How can we leverage you to help us show them that we'll bring a different way to improve operational capacity? And that's why I got accepted into the bid, because no one else has it.
Yeah.
All you have, you can have a piece of software, but that's not it. It's a belief that we want to release the capacity, structure people around systematically engaging them around the process of work, listening to them, leveraging their imagination and ingenuity every time they pull that ending cord. So how does an owner make that happen? How does a general contractor make that happen with the parade of trades? They don't manage people, they manage stuff and paperwork. People, it's not people first. If you believed in what I just had to say, you hire us and we help you make the people first.
Beautiful. So if somebody wants to find out more about Bootlink or eTracker, where should they go?
JW Toups Incorporated, John Toups, jwtoops.com. If you go there, it'll all be showing up very shortly in terms of what we do, improving things by releasing the capacity of people. Suppose you didn't want to buy the system, but you wanted just to fool with life-saving rules. You can We can respond to you in your own fractional silo of we got everything, but we need this. And we can help you in silos. And we were hoping that would open the door to listen to us. But again, the most difficult thing is to change the belief systems of the CEOs who have succeeded with their experiences and their thoughts. And now the world has changed.
Yeah.
Can think differently to adapt,
You sound like
right?
Dr. You sound like Dr. Bob Emiliani, who we had on the show not long ago as well.
Well, that's what it is. And so they will get there. They are going to have to find a way to succeed. I talked to a guy that got $7 billion to spend on construction, and he is very concerned that he will get skilled craft people coming to his job because skilled craft people can pick and choose where to go now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very few. So how can he entice them to come to his job? And it's really money will only get you there. It's not going to get quality execution. But imagine if you showed up on a job site and you had an orientation and it says, Adam, give me 3 things you want to see more of and 3 things you want to see less of on this job site. On day 1 and on day 2, they said, here's what you want, here's what we're doing. And guess what? On day 1, they had like a knapsack, a swag, and it had stuff in there. It's like it was Christmas. It's just like you're important and we want you to. And guess what? We even had something for your wife. And we even have a campaign for your children. We want them to engage in a safety contest, a home hazard hunt. We want them wearing T-shirts that said, Lean Builders keeps our family together and safe. And so that when you go to the Lean Builder Project, we are focused on safety and productivity and job satisfaction. And this is a great career and a great place for your family to be involved with. We need to connect the family as part of the thinking. I did that with CEOs. We brought wives into the office and asked them how would they want to be treated and what did they need to know about the company and where they were. Imagine if you're going to this job site in British Columbia, 2,600 people for 3 years, and he comes home and he says, honey, click on this QR code and I'll email it to you. And it says, look at the job site. Look at where we eat. Look at where we sleep. Look at where we doing, honey. Look at where we are. You're part of knowing what I'm doing.
Kind of cool, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, why don't we connect? They're going to be there for 3 years going back and forth.
I love it.
Why don't we think about an ecosystem of a family involved in the trades, not just the worker? Because if the wife ain't happy, and is anybody
I don't
happy?
know if I've heard that happy wife, happy life thing before.
Yeah. We are. But you see, the approach that I'm saying is not about my software.
Yeah.
It's about where can you take the thinking on caring, and what would you need to do to say, come to my job site because we do care about you, and we will listen to you in a unique way.
It's a beautiful thing. And again, it's the reason I've been successful. I just listen to the worker and empower them. That's it. That's all. The only thing that I will credit that and being around some pretty awesome people, the only things I will credit for the success in my construction career. And we're getting down towards the end, and I've got a few more questions for you that I'm just dying to ask you to kind of drive home some of the takeaways that I'm pulling out of this podcast. If you had one core message to the construction industry right now, what is the message that we need to hear about respect for people?
Well, just relook, if you're in Lean, just relook at the founding architecture of Toyota. Truly put people first. Think through what is the people first strategy in beliefs, in principles, in methods to operationalize. So, how do you take a principle of we care about you and then to do it? SIFs, how do we set people up for success? How do we set people up to be part of something? Do you even tell them what you're building and what the benefits are going to be? And then do you trust them enough? Do you really? And in the last few days, Adam, last 2 weeks, I talked to some people in the engineering world. And when I talk about this with the engineers, 100%, which is only 4 people, said, we won't do that. And I said, what? We don't trust them. We don't trust the workers. They control them. They say, we will design the processes. We will write the rules and they will follow them. The old 3 E's of safety. We're going to engineer it so it's idiot proof. We're going to train them on it. And then we're going to fire them if they don't follow the rules. So the 3 E's. And we haven't moved too far from that. People might say, we got it. Yeah, you have a control system. You do not have a stewardship system. And if you did, you would know how many processes were improved, how many were simplified, how many were standardized, what would be the dollar amount of it, right? So you would have a different set of measures rather than accidents or whatever you think your leading indicators and trending are. You would have real changes to real processes from the minds of the workers that is now documented in eTracker, leveraged throughout the system to be shared.
So if the company wanted to take a step tomorrow to begin restoring that people first principle, what do? Besides going and getting BootLink, eTracker, like what's one simple step that a company can do tomorrow in order to drive a people first culture?
It's a self-reflection. You talked about what Stanford had to say, right? It's, can you be aware of yourself? Again, remember what I said, my 4 C's starts with self-awareness, self-consciousness, consciousness of others, then readiness of process, readiness of the environment. So just self-examine what you believe. Do you trust people? Would you be willing to trust them? And then think with empathy on the other people you work with. Do they feel trusted? Do you feel you are releasing that capacity and can see it? So just ask yourself those questions. And then if you want to move into a different direction and even pilot it with just two foremen, two groups with a foreman, see what would happen. I mean, but again, we've become so distrusting of crafts that we judge them as inferior. Society is, if you rank positions, I saw years ago, out of 100, 256 positions, construction and craft workers comes at the bottom. It's not a highly ranked desired position, when in fact, I love putting my hands on tools and making something. I own 2 camps and 5 properties, and we're always tinkering and making stuff and inventing stuff to hang stuff, to do something. It's, I just love it, and working with other people to do it. But I've learned through working with my brother, who's a plumber, and he thinks he's smarter than me, and that's a challenge. So we got to go through this very detailed collaborative plan review before we start anything, or we'd be arguing. You understand the value of that? It's really
Yeah, conditions of satisfaction. We like to have those before we start projects so we understand how each party will be satisfied upon the completion of the job, and then we can continually work towards those things. I love it.
so self-reflection is the answer. So if they put on paper, look, use the Ben Franklin technique. Take a piece of paper. Am I stewarding potential? Do I trust people? And yes, the things that I do, what are my behaviors and processes that enable that? And see what you have. How many can you, as a CEO, can you see that is enabled in the field? It can't stop. It's got to go all the way down to that craft worker, and it has to be operationalized in the field. If it stops anywhere else, it's just bullshito. It
Hey.
ain't real. Right? So how do what I do up here translate to trusting stewardship of capacity, where I don't judge them and don't say, well, he's not educated, he can't think? Well, that's wrong. They think about that job that they do. I have a lady in my warehouse over here. She is the most imaginative, creative employee I have. And I've got a guy who at 16 went to Johns Hopkins and finished at 21 with 2 masters, one in mathematics and one in computer science. And this little lady is so inventive in processes that she blows me away. So it's not about the education. You don't know what's going to come out of the minds of a human being when you release it.
Yeah. Now, because that's what lean builders do right there. Man, I think that's what pure lean builders do. I believe that there's a lot of bullshito or fake lean in the business where it is consultants who are going and trying to eliminate waste and increase efficiencies. That's not what lean builders do. Lean builders, we eliminate waste and we create efficiencies because we love the people so much that we're doing, that we do those two things. We eliminate waste and create efficiencies with the people that are doing the work because they know best. And all we're doing, quite honestly, is empowering those people to do it themselves and getting them the things that they need in order to make that happen. So, yes, that's what true lean builders do. That's not what bullshito lean builders do. I'll put it that way.
So is that operationalized with measurement from a CEO's capacity?
Oh.
What I just gave you is an operational system that is measurable to understand in real terms, why is this contractor's people contributing and this one's not? Is because they're controlling and they're not. You can see it in the data. And when I did a refinery in Baytown, New Jersey, From the data, one contractor took 18 days to respond to unsafe things reported. Another one was consistently within 24 hours. So what does that tell you? They are not listening and responding. So do you have data that you can see the release in capacity and leverage it, or is it an event, a single event with an Adam Hoot and your compadres, or is it systematized by the industry as a belief system that is operationalized and measured across projects? It is
Now
not.
you're starting to talk in some Donella Meadows thinking and system leverage points. You're right. Like I am very close to the leverage point of the system, and I'm making minimal impact on the system as I do my physical events and I drive and I'm fighting gravity every day. And it's so frustrating, and I'm not impacting the system as a whole. I'm getting some local optimum. But as soon as I start to move away from that leverage point, and I start to realize information and patterns. And then I start to really see the information and systems, right? Where those systems start. And then when we can start to get into the paradigm shifts, now we have a full on change to the system. You're right. You're 100% right. I'm operating at the physical event level, and you're out here operating at the paradigm change level. And so, somewhere between us is a real lean builder making effective change at a system wide level. And I'm excited about it. Again, we've had this conversation several times. I want to get on board. I want to help you operationalize this. I want to help make eTracker Hoots Link a household name, right? Because I do believe so heavily in it. In my dissertation right now, I had just finished my dissertation proposal last night at midnight, 11:58, so that I could submit it by 11:59 for whatever that's worth. But my focus, my topic is how do leadership styles and emotional intelligence build or erode trust between workers and leaders at the job site level. And I could not think of a better topic to align with the program. Honestly, I'd love to figure out how to make my research project support and providing empirical evidence at the proof that your program works, because I think at its root that's what you're trying to do. Is you put it as changing the mindset of the executives. I would put it as just building trust between workers and leaders at the job site. And I believe that that is the missing key to really unlock this lean innovation, scientific management of how do we just build better as humans. And so I want to tee you up to kind of, as we're going out, what right now gives you the most hope for the future of construction leaders?
I don't really have an overwhelming amount of hope, to be quite honest. We are so stuck in the paradigm of control, not only at the management level, but the worker level. We ourselves are subject to the propaganda about our own capacity. And so the number of people willing to speak up and the willing to act in change, I'm looking for a few. And so when I talk to my staff, it's just not an alignment. And I'm looking for an alignment of somebody who believes that the ground has shifted, and that if you look at the value of construction in the, so I don't know, Adam. I mean, when I talk to engineers, every single one of them, which is only a handful, they wouldn't trust the hourly people. When I did work with CEOs, I have a career of working with about 5 CEOs, very large companies, and until they retired, they used me exclusively, and it contained me. I worked with some very large companies and took my knowledge and had philosophical conversations on beliefs and execution, because that's what it takes. See, when you talk about the job site trust, that will not happen unless the owner is insisting that there is a release of capacity of people. Other than that, you will not have an industry of workers. They are not coming. I wrote an article, it's a joke. Send 500 more people from the union hall on this 2,600 men. They ain't 500 people to send. Nobody's coming. So we need leaders to think through the problem And we need to re-engage the hearts and minds of our people. And we need to operationalize that the way Toyota did. There are models out there, but we just need to. But again, how does an owner operationalize it? All they got is money. They run the finished product. They don't build the product. There needs to what do they say? The mind that got us here, we need a different level to get us to the next level.
Yeah,
And so
the mind that created the problem is not the mind that will solve the problem. Something along those lines.
So yeah, something along the lines. And so there's also what I learned in 1977 from a guy with Procter & Gamble is that when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, it pushes change. We're at that now.
Yeah. Oh,
the pain of staying the same is so hard. If you don't change, you are look what happened to CB&I, Chicago Bridge and Iron, 100-year-old company. What's happening to Zachary? What happened to Floor? What happened to all these big companies in Europe? They're not making money and going out of business. Lawsuits out the gazoo, right?
the same thinking that got us into this problem is not the same thinking that will get us out of this problem. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
So you're asking me, do I trust the thinkers that are controlling this to change that belief to a different level?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there's not an overabundance of free thinkers. Even Buckingham created the Free Thinkers Association just to try to collect a few minds willing to break the paradigm. Because I gave some information. I remember when I brought a book at the time, it was the largest company in the world, and I brought in the Deming books, and they said, "Get out of here with this. This is heresy. We're the biggest, smartest group of engineers in the world. We tell people what to do. You telling me we gotta listen to them idiots on the floor? What? I'm telling you the
I believe
truth."
it. I see it every day.
So, what is my trust in that? It's the trust in pain in the construction industry. The general contractors are going busted. The lawsuits, matter of fact, Exxon didn't pay AECOM 84 million bucks because they said the laborers were too unproductive, and we're not going to pay you 84 million. That equates to what, 850 million in business to get that back? Now, AECOM won the suit. It was a 2019 lawsuit, but it was over the productivity of people. Lawsuits, pain, everybody distrusting everybody, the owners, the contractors, the subcontractors. How you doing on your schedule? Oh, we're doing great. Come on, get right.
Make my schedule say anything I want. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look, this book right here, in the forward of this book by Hal, they've got they've got Clancy Bell, the chairman and chief design officer of Harvester and Company, says it distinctly. He nails it in that book.
What's he say?
He really
Tell us. What's he say? Just read it. 2 episodes ago was Hal Maycomer on here. And the book you're talking about is, I believe, Project Sensei, right?
Yeah. Well, this is an educated gentleman. He understands Fernando Flores, who I studied 30 years ago, about variance in engaging people. He says the central weakness in our interests today are embodied in a generation of habitual ways of thinking, speaking, and acting founded in Western habits. The habits come largely from poor interpretation of what human beings are and what they do, and the way we connect our lives and practice and language with them, right? First, the people, not the contracts, the methods, the machines, the procedures, the processes, the programs, the rules, the organization, the plans, or incentives are responsible for producing action. It's people first, right? Second, before anything else, everything happens when people speak and listen to each other. The majority of mistakes, misdirection, and misunderstandings begin and are played out from miscoordinated, granted in speaking and language with these others. And finally, before we think or act, human beings are already pointed into directions of our moods and preconceptions. People are pre-programmed with biases and beliefs, and they judge conversations in that, as opposed to seek first to understand and collaborate effectively. And he goes on in this thing to talk about the mistrust, the anger, the betrayal, the unhappiness of job sites that a lot of people leave frustrated every day because they can't accomplish, not because of their capacity, because of the 4Ds, things that are dumb, dangerous, overloaded, mentally overloaded, difficult, that don't need to be this difficult, and things that have too much variation with different form and different instruction, different paperwork, different routines, but yet they can't feed into that craziness to straighten it out. So to know it is one thing, and to implement it takes the visionary leaders to steward it.
There's a great Harvard Review article on the knowing doing gap. And it is real and it is a hard thing to overcome, but it is possible. And so I want to give us a little bit of hope for the future. I see a little bit of change happening, at least on my jobs. I do like the inspiration that you're giving me about getting further away from that leverage point. I know you are a very educated man. You read like I have never seen somebody read before. And quite honestly, I love that, especially at 75. You introduced yourself as a student. I can tell you, you've been a huge teacher in my life. Every time you send me an article, a book reference, I consume it, no matter what it is. And I need zero reason why other than John Toups said so. And so I want you to give our listeners some recommendations. It might be books, it might be practices, it might be tools or people that you think every builder should know about.
I think they should know about the work of Marcus Buckingham in his book, The 9 Lies About Work, and the rationale in those discoveries. I think you ought to know Carol Stanford's work. And you ought to know the regenerative business. You ought to know the No More Gold Stars in the recent book that I gave you, Adam, that you're reading right now. You found a lot in that one,
Indirect work.
the indirect work. And so it's fundamental in understanding how our minds are. And then you ought to understand Kahneman's work on thinking fast and slow. And what that does is it lets you understand that the reaction of people is not always controlled and thoughtful. It is responsive, stimulus response. And so it's stimulus pause response. So what we do in our system is creating more pauses to break that system one, system two thinking, to allow thinking. See, so when you want to blame people about their actions or stimulus response, so if we can create triggers of pause, imagine triggers of
Yeah,
pause.
now you're training the worker to have these moments of pause before response as well, which just improves outcomes.
Well, again, in the pause, okay, stimulus response, stimulus pause. What do you want to do in the pause?
Think.
You want to think. What do you want to think about? You first of all, you need to be self-aware. You need to first thing is in that pause, am I calm, clear, committed? Do I understand the variables in play? And then the very next thing is what's happening with my coworker? I just saw something. What is Adam doing? Is he at risk? I just realized there's a lot of tension in this. If it releases, so
Here
you
comes
got
the
to
humble
think.
inquiry now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's from yourself immediately to others. And then is everything ready in that process? Or is there a variance of expectation? And then is everything in its place? Is the environment? So those are what you want to be aware of in the pause. Now let's say I see a variance. Right? Now what do? Oh well, too bad. That dummy didn't plan it. Look what he's gonna do. Or do you own it and act into the variant? Do you pull the ending cord? Are you expected to pull the variant ending cord? And then when you pull it, what does that mean? Do you simply do time out or do you speak into it with care, with clarity of self, awareness of your story, reflecting on the other person, and dialoguing with discovery? How many people just tell a craft person when you see something, you're going to feel it and you're going to make up a story in your head? That's automatic for every human being. And that story in your head is probably not real.
Yeah.
That's right. And so if you then don't own it and act into it, what good is it? It's like being able to read and not reading, knowing and not doing. And every time you feel you're inadequate and you can't speak up and there's no freedom to be wrong,
It's wrong.
you diminish yourself.
You start believing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the external environment drives self-thought, and that will drive a behavior or no behavior. And if it drives a behavior and other people criticize it, then you go back, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So the environment sets up self, or builds it or destroys it.
Yeah.
So in a work world, we want everybody to know we're not perfect. But if we inquire and we coach and discover and learn together, we're all better. We all need to learn. And so how do you operationalize the mind to see, to act, and then to respect the conversation where we could be wrong? You've had me on this talk with the old dogs, and in one of the episodes, the conversation was something wasn't right and they needed to speak into it, but they didn't really know how to speak into it to not get everybody mad and blown up. There ought to be an agreement. So in our process, if you got trained and I got trained, and I say, Adam, I'm a little concerned here. I've just seen some things here, and it add me to not be calm and clear. Do you mind if we do a planned review together, collaborate over and review this together, and it'll help me walk me through it? And you should say, great, you now know what's happening. I'm confused and I want you to help me.
Yeah.
So you just help me walk through, and then we can collaborate and come to an understanding. And then we might say, wow, we don't even need to do that. If we did it this way, we could eliminate that. Or if we do this, we could substitute this. So in that moment, in that teachable moment, comes opportunity for discovery and transformation.
And John, what do you say to the people who are like, yeah, John, that's wonderful, man, but I'm going to tell you, in construction, if we empower the worker, they're going to abuse the heck out of it, man. They're going to take it and they're going to run with it and they're going to work the system and own it, and they're going to be hiding on the job. The more we empower them, what's your response to that?
It reveals their own distrust of people. And so you Pygmalioning out what you believe. That's what you're gonna get if it's what's in your head. You know, when I used to have these recognition systems, and people said, "Oh man, you go let the foreman give away and recognize people immediately, and he gonna give it to his buddy." Now, what happens if I keep giving all my goodies to you, Adam, and everybody else is in the team, and everybody sees that?
Yeah, they're going to,
What are they gonna say to you?
not
Hey,
fair.
brown nose. Yeah, yeah. So belonging and competence is so built into our human nature that you are either going to allow the takers to take over or the givers to take over.
Adam
All
Grant,
right.
give and take. Yeah.
Adam Grant, give or take. So, what do you believe will happen, and what happens when you do it? My experience is people want to contribute, they want to be of value. And so and I believe people misunderstand individualism. We are a tribe. If you're on a job site and you're out from your crew, you ain't liking it and they ain't liking it, right? So when an idea gets adopted and you're free to share it, it's because your team you're psychologically safe with them. If not, you wouldn't share it. So it really, every idea is a team idea. It means a team is open to discovery collectively. So when we reward, we need to make sure that we recognize individual and team support of the ability to be open. It's not just an individual. We do things collectively in work. And we should recognize, even when I studied the Department of Defense's stuff in about HOP, there's 500 pages, 250 pages on
Human organizational performance. Yes.
Yeah, so there's 250 pages on the theory, 200 pages on operationalizing it, but it's all human, individual centered. It misses the team component. We function as a tribe. And we need to understand that's missing as well.
Mm-hmm.
To know and not do is to not know. So if they evaluate themselves at the senior level, the CEO, VP of operation, people in lean, the Lean Construction Institute, the smartest thinkers in there, make a list. What are the operational processes you teach that are implemented, that are measured?
Yeah.
Simply, how many processes have been changed, simplified, standardized, reduced the complexity of? Do you have any data on that? Deming said, in God we trust, everybody
Bring
else bring
data.
the data.
Yeah.
Data. So, what are you looking for? Reactionary data or leading indicator or process change data?
Yeah.
I can give you a set of data that no one has. How many teams and how many foremen are speaking up? What are they doing? They're changing, they're simplifying processes. They eliminated steps. When you talk about lean, you got 16 barriers, 8 ways, and 7 to 5 S's. Have you documented from the workers their recognition of the issue and the resolution of it and the monetary impact as a standard way of doing business? No, not a single one.
Mm.
Not a single
Mm.
one.
You're getting me fired up, John. This isn't supposed to happen an hour and 45 minutes in. I want you to take this thing, man. What is your final message to the Lean Builder Nation? How do we want to go out? I'm going to drop off the screen and just give you solo layout. You take the message away and help make us better as an industry.
Well, all I'd like to say is that every human being deserves to achieve his full potential. And if he's going to be in an organization, they should steward that capacity. And we need to believe in the goodness of people, that we are human. We do have our own needs to be met, but we are a group that want to belong and want to share and contribute. In my 15, 20 years of being in front of people every week, using their imagination and tap into it, proved it to me. So we need to trust that people have a goodness in them, that they are more givers than they are takers. And so we need to look at the work world as the last bastion of people coming together to really create significance together and to provide an environment where each individual can feel like he can express himself, he can be part of a trusted team. And we need to think and how do we operationalize that rather than money, cutting costs. And at the end of the day, the reason Toyota says people first is because if people care and if they think through their processes, they can't help but see opportunity for improvement and then given the expectation and the process to share and leverage. And that's what's missing, not only in construction, but in every business. We don't have that belief system that's a stewardship principles that put into an operational processes to trust people, to give them some ownership in terms of psychology. You're part of the company, you're part of the outcome, and we want you to be part of that, and we want to know what you can do to help us to do it. So my ending comment is that people first, but operationalize it with respect and trust people that you can trust them, that they will contribute. Now, the bad apples, certainly you have to remove them. If they're not willing to be part of a team and collectively to understand we have people who have different strengths and different weaknesses and can deal with that in an environment, they have to leave. They just need to find something else to be fulfilling at, but they can't be in a cohesive team that is willing to work with human beings who are inferior, have strengths and have weaknesses that we all have. And we have to learn to use those strengths and weaknesses as a team collectively, respectively, to jointly achieve objectives for the company and a company we belong to, the company that's helping support our families, but it also respects us and our families. And so do some self discovery. Are you part of something that helps you be all you can be? and to find that place that allows you to be who you are, and for you to not limit yourself by societal beliefs, just to believe that we all have what our Constitution says, inalienable rights to be. So that's my message. Be yourself, find a place that lets you contribute. And Adam, thank you for having me on this podcast.
Because that's what real lean builders do with no bullshito. John, it was my pleasure. I love learning with you. I'll be forever grateful for you and Miss Megan Coles, who introduced us. Got to give her a shout out, a wonderful human being. Yes, thank you, John. It's a true honor and privilege to learn with you.
Thank you for having me.